My friends, this sermon time today in our Why Worship sermon series is a conversation about why give. Why give? We'll dive into this question, and in doing so, we're going to find ourselves in a defining conversation for us as a community. We'll have the chance to kind of look back at where we've been and then sketch together the vision that our leadership has been hearing from God for where we're headed in this next year, with some big reveals and some God-sized dreams, and I am so stinking excited for it. For today is a good, significant day for us here at Salt House. So take a deep breath, and get ready, for we have miles and miles of ground to cover today, okay? So, to look at this question, why give, we're just going to dive right into the biblical story for some answers, okay? So here we go. Jump with me to Exodus 16. Right after Israel, God's people have been freed from Egyptian slavery through Yahweh's liberating action, so the Exodus, they begin to grumble in the desert, in the wilderness, right? They have it so bad that they want to go back to Egypt. But God hears his people and promises that they will have food. And we know the story, right? How manna, this dusting of frost-like bread, covers the ground in the morning, and quails appear each evening. And so each day, God gave the Israelites enough food for the day. Every day, God gives them what they need. There is enough for all. When some then tried to gather up more and kind of save it for the next day, so they have a little bit extra, by morning the manna was stinky and it was filled with maggots, but they all were to take an extra portion on the sixth day each week, because the seventh day is to be a day of Sabbath rest. So, this moment in Israel's story, Dan Erlander, a local Lutheran pastor and theologian, he refers to this time in the story of Israel as wilderness school, right? Because God's people learned so much in this wilderness time. And we hear it for us too, how we own nothing. All is God's, all is gift. God gives enough for all to be shared by all. Hoarding, it causes rot. It stinks, so don't do it, right? Just take enough for your needs. Our work is helping God distribute manna, the gift God promises to all. And then finally, God gives rest so humans can practice full-time what life is about, which is friendship with God, friendship with others, friendship with nature. It's just so good, right? These huge themes are carried through the biblical story. Everything belongs to God. It is a gift. There's enough for all, and our work is to share it. This is just a centerpiece of the story of our generous God who invites us to live this flow of stewarding all that we have, given by God so that we have enough and so that we can share it. Whew, man. I wonder, do you need this reminder today of our God who gives you what you need today and tomorrow? I know I need that reminder. So in asking the question, why give? Why do we get together every Sunday and include in this time a chance to give our money away? Why are we a community that collects money and then decides what we would do with it together? So to get at this question, I want us to circle back to two key teachings that we often talk about here at Salt House regarding giving. And the first is what we hear in Wilderness School in Exodus 16. We own nothing. All is God's. All is gift. All is to be shared. And we are made to give because we are made in the image of our God who is generous. You may remember that one way we've captured this truth is in how living generously is to live with open hands. Can you take a moment just to open your hands, palms up on your lap if you're sitting in front of you? This is the posture we're invited to live in, open hands. They express the flow of how we live both receiving and giving, right? It's hard to keep our hands open to express that, that's so vulnerable. And it's also hard to keep our hands open as we let everything that is placed in our hands, not be something that we keep for ourselves. Hoarding stinks, remember? But we see it as God giving us what we need with enough to be given away to share for all. Just check in with yourself for a moment with your hands open. Ask yourself, in what ways are you staying open to the receiving and giving of God in your life right now? How are you participating with God? Yes, in the midst of global pandemic and the stifling challenges of this year, in what ways are you sharing in that receiving and giving flow of God? How are you connected to that? And then also ask, in what ways are you feeling a sense of scarcity? How are you closed off? What are you hanging on to tightly? In what ways are you experiencing closed fists? Yes, in the midst of pandemic. So that's the first key teaching here at Salt House we keep coming back to about giving. We are made to receive and give in the image of God and in cooperation with God to live with open hands. For the second key teaching on giving, we circle back to here at Salt House often. We remember how Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, his most famous, dense teaching, in the midst of it, Matthew 6, verse 21, Jesus says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Get your head around that. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus is saying that what we give our money and resources and ourselves to, our treasure, that is where our hearts are. What we spend our money on, this shapes our hearts. It forms us. The way we say it at Salt House, that means that you should give where you want your heart to go. Put your money and resources into the places that you want your heart to go. Who do you want to become? Then support the places and things that form you in that way. Give where you want your heart to go. So, why give? This question, right? Because all of this belongs to God. All of it is gift. We are made in the generous image of God to share and live generously with all that God entrusts us. And we give because our hearts go where we give. Giving shapes who we are on a heart level. Where you spend your money is shaping who you become. Isn't that crazy? Doesn't it also make a lot of sense? Give where you want your heart to go. This is why Jesus talked about money more than anything else, and why we, as Jesus followers, have to have these conversations about money, because it's absolutely a spiritual issue, an issue of the heart. Now, here's the thing. As you know, we are, in this year, living in an unprecedented time. And the repercussions of COVID have absolutely affected the ways we each use our money. Do you know where we are? We're in wilderness school, right? We, like Israel, we are learning about what manna is, and toilet paper and gasoline. And we're learning about what it means to have enough for today and to trust God for that, and how hoarding stinks, and that when we share, there can be enough for all. During COVID, we have seen up close, in both inspiring and in heartbreaking ways, how directly what we have has impacts on the world when we spend it, when we share it, and what happens when we don't. And many of us have seen our spending shift. For some of us, we were just trying to survive. For others, we found ourselves giving to the places, people, things, businesses that we wanted to see survive. I wonder, where has your money gone this year? In what ways did it shift? And consider then, where has your heart gone because of that spending? What has your heart been shaped? How has your heart been shaped during COVID? Where is your treasure? And therefore, where is your heart? Because if your spending and your giving shifted, you've also had some heart shifting too. Now we find ourselves at a defining moment as a church community where we see how there are places we want our heart to go, where we want, who we want to be and become as a community together. Really, though, this is us wanting to continue to live the story that we were birthed out of 6 years ago, because we were birthed out of the generosity of God. Do you remember our origin story? This building was Trinity Lutheran Church, who closed their doors in 2013 and donated this building and $100,000 to Holy Spirit Lutheran Church across town. Such generosity, right? So Trinity had open hands, right? They also were giving where they wanted their heart to go. They wanted God to create something new. Just 8 months after we opened in November 2016, our whole community, which was about 30 people, we voted unanimously to let our unfinished basement become a day center for families experiencing homelessness, run by Catholic Community Services for 3 years as they searched for a permanent 24-hour solution for a shelter. We had open hands. We said yes. We then actually became that permanent 24-hour shelter location as we sold a half acre of our land for that 24-hour shelter for families and also for women experiencing homelessness. Our open hands with what we have. We gave where we wanted our hearts to go. Notice, though, how when we launched as a church, our hearts were not yet engaged in homelessness. But through each of our decisions, we heard God's invitation to continue to keep our hands open and say yes. We want our basement. We want our land. We want our money from our community initiatives fund, our time, our staff's time, our playground, our forest, to go towards the good folk who are in that place of transition of experiencing homelessness at Kirkland Place. We keep spending ourselves, our treasure, on engaging homelessness. And by doing so, we're saying we want our hearts to go there. And they are there. It is one of our 7 core practices for us here at Salt House. We engage homelessness. It's where our heart is. It is who we are, at least in part. So now, as we look at our next fiscal year that begins on July 1st, so our financial cycle runs July 1st through June 30th every year. So for this upcoming fiscal year, we hear again the invitation to have open hands in expanded ways, birthed out of what we've been learning in wilderness school during COVID. And I'm so excited to share with you the 4 ways we want to expand our hearts in the year to come. To be clear, what I'm going to say is all in addition to what we're already doing, okay? Like, this is the more, okay? And all of what I'm about to share with you has been shaped by so many different people in our community. We've had so many conversations and teams of leaders Zooming together throughout the last few months, and small groups meeting, and our staff just kicking butt like they do, all doing some incredible work to pull together this vision for our expanded sense of mission and ministry here at Salt House. So a huge thanks to everyone for all of this collaborative work. So there's so much that I'm about to share. Like, I'm so excited. I'm also a little sad that I can't say all the things about all the things. And so just know that there is more, and we'll keep sharing more in the weeks to come, okay? Are you ready to hear where we want our hearts to go? Okay. Again, this is on top of what we already are doing and will continue to do, okay? So here we go. First of 4. We want to keep our hearts in this work of homelessness, engaging with homelessness, by building more meaningful relationships for impact with our neighbors at Kirkland Place. And as COVID's limitations begin to cease, here is our expanded vision for what that looks like for this next year. We want to forge a formal liaison relationship as well as have an informal chaplain presence with Kirkland Place. Having a pastoral presence that's just here, present daily for all the important day-to-day interactions that happen on our shared campus. We've already seen this naturally begin to happen as our staff has been here more in the building in recent weeks. Also, we're going to launch a new Wednesday night ministry for Kirkland Place, gathering those families and our Salt House families and individuals as well for a night together of food and connection and learning with programming for all ages. Remember, eating together, it's something we will do again and find a way to do that in a collective way with Kirkland Place. So we're keeping our hearts in homelessness. All right, that's the first. Number 2, we want our hearts to go toward each other. We want all of us to know and experience that we belong here at Salt House. So we're setting a priority for nurturing relationships, growth, and connection within our Salt House church community. We envision an expansion of our small group opportunities, both Zoom and in person, as well as training the leaders needed for that growth. Also, we want our kids and our teens to thrive, especially after this year. We're going to define the arc of spiritual formation over the lifespan for our kids, including a particular focus on developing our ministry with teens. We're also investing in an intern pastor, Zach Herzog. Hi, Zach, who will be here. He'll join us officially starting in September, but he's going to be here in person next Sunday just to be able to greet us. More on all the details of that to come. So, number 2, we're expanding our heart towards each other, prioritizing our growth in community, as community, to belong here, knowing that in relationship with others, that's where we grow, right? Right. All right. And third, our hearts are following what we've learned this year, that the accessibility and quality of our online presence, it matters, and it is changing and affecting lives. We're calling it investing in tech to create an awesome hybrid experience so that through new cameras and streaming software and Surface Hubs, we'll ensure at-home and in-person worship parity, okay? As well as have the capability to host small groups with folks using Surface Hubs so that everyone can feel connected and safe in the method that they choose to be in community here. This, figuring out the tech of things right now, this is the new normal for everyone, right? With technology bringing us together, that our hearts go towards each other, including via the tech that we have access to. All right, that's number 3. Now, fourth and finally, drum roll, please. Perhaps this is the most exciting. It is the most exciting, I think. You guys, we want our hearts to expand our impact to fight injustice. We see this heart movement toward 2 particular issues of justice. First, we want to be an anti-racist church. We want our hearts to go there alongside our BIPOC siblings. Anti-racism work is to upend the systems of grave injustices that have been braided into the normalcy of this country's fabric, into its morals, into its institutions, including the church, into the air that we are all breathing. And so fighting that, we want our hearts there. A huge thanks to all of you who have been a part of our many small groups this year on race and racial justice, for you all are leading us into this work. So to tell us more, I want to let Pastor Ryan fill you in on the recommendations for action that we are setting as priority for our community this year. And it is bold and awesome. So my friends, listen up.
Oh, Salt House, I am so excited to share this with you. So about 18 of us went through Jamar Tisby's book, The Color of Compromise, which tells the truth about the white American church's complicity in racism. And it was a really hard read. It was a heartbreaking read, but it was really a motivating read, that what's needed is not just repentance, but repair. And so from this group, we made some recommendations to Salt House about how to increase our awareness as a community, how to build relationships, and how to make commitments. And the most bold commitment that we thought of was to create a reparations fund, that we didn't want to wait for the government to act. We, the church, wanted to act now to give reparations to individuals of African descent in Washington state in support of education and occupational skills and debt relief and healthcare and majority Black-owned businesses and Black home ownership. And amazingly, we've already received donations towards this fund before it even went public. So Juneteenth, we're going to celebrate the first of the allocations of this fund, and we need your help. We need your help to get the word out, both to receive donations and for applicants to apply for the reparations. So I want you to check out our social media platforms for links to share with others. And now I'm really proud to introduce you to the board of the Salt House Reparations Fund.
Deetra Clayton.
Hi, I'm Angela Maeda.
Hi, I'm Andrew Ndambaji.
Hello, I am Jim Anderson.
And I'm Molly Cotting.
Isn't that incredible? We'll continue to hear more about the specifics of our work with anti-racism, as well as the specifics of the Reparations Fund in the week to come and weeks to come. Just so much good stuff. And as Pastor Ryan, you might have heard, anyone can donate directly to the Reparations Fund. But let me say a bit more about how we collectively can be a part of growing this fund as well. We, Salt House, have always given away 10% of our annual income. And it has gone to our local synod as part of our affiliation with the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. There are so many reasons why it's good for us to be a part of a national denomination, especially a denomination that is so inclusive and justice-oriented, as we are able to have so much support as well as have access to fuel ministries that are wider than our own neighborhood reach. Well, Salt House, we're recommending that we continue to give away 10% of our income as a church, but we want to direct those funds differently. We'd still want to give 8% to our synod. In addition, 1% of our annual income will go into our Salt House Reparations Fund to directly impact Black individuals, Black families, Black businesses, Black lives, because Black lives matter. So our money is headed there because we want our hearts there also. Additionally, the second justice issue we want to set our hearts toward is justice for all people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual. We need to amplify what we know to be true, that God's love is fully inclusive of all queer beloveds. Full stop. Radical welcome is already one of our core practices here at Salt House because that's how Jesus lives, and so we do too. And we see ourselves broadening how we extend welcome and inclusion even further. To that end, we're recommending to give 1% of our income directly towards work that fights for our queer beloveds. Staff and council are recommending that we support a local organization that has an international reach. It's called Beloved Arise. It's a movement to fight for the lives of queer youth of faith. Through online youth groups and resources and teaching, Beloved Arise helps queer youth of faith to know they are beloved of God. They're creating an inclusive Christian narrative that is nurturing the next generation, and we want to amplify that by financially supporting their work. The need for justice in our world is so overwhelming, but we very intentionally we're targeting our money to go directly towards these two, Black reparations and LGBTQ inclusion and advocacy, because these are two populations of folks who have been historically and continue to be harmed by the church. And we as Christians have been complicit in this harm. Not only do we need to work to stop that harm, we want to put our money directly into this work for greater impact because of the desperate need to repair the historical and continuing damage. Because as a church, this is how we, Salt House, how we want our hearts to grow together. So there you have it. My friends, isn't this so much good stuff? Do you feel as passionate as we do about how good this feels to open our hands and expand our hearts where we want them to go into these 4 ways? Do you feel this too? For us together as a movement of our hearts into these places where we are building more meaningful relationship for impact with our neighbors experiencing homelessness at Kirkland Place. We're prioritizing our growth in community as community to belong here, knowing that in relationship is where we grow. investing in our tech so that folks at all abilities and all locations have access to life here at Salt House in as full a way as possible. And finally, expanding our impact to fight injustice, especially on behalf of our BIPOC and LGBTQ folk, to the point of having specific funds going directly to that work. Are you with me? Do you want your heart to go in these 4 directions together? Yes? Yes? Well, to get our hearts there, to do the work, then we need to grow our treasure, our giving, to get our hearts there. Our staff and council have drafted a budget for next year that includes this growth in our giving and growth of our hearts. We are looking at an additional $100,000 that fuels these 4 initiatives. This includes $30,000 towards the tech piece of it. So those are fixed one-time costs. Then about $70,000 are the costs of ministry and staffing increase they would see expanding past this year as well. And that includes Pastor Ryan moving from half-time to full-time to cover much of these pastoral roles. So how are we going to increase our income by $100,000? Well, today we're launching our year-long Leap of Heart giving campaign. We're asking you, every one of us, to say, yes, I want my heart to leap, to go there into all these good places with the Salt House community so that God can do this life-changing work. And I'll do that by putting my treasure, my money, where I want my heart to go with this church community, because money is a spiritual heart issue. The first phase of the Leap of Heart campaign begins right now, and it's the pledging phase. And we're asking you between now and July 1st to name your intention by considering how you can increase your giving next year as our new fiscal year begins on July 1st. So between now and July 1st, you'll go online to our special Leap of Heart page and make your pledge for how much you want to give over and beyond what you currently give as we expand our impact together. If you already have a monthly donation, we recommend you add an additional donation pledged through the campaign so that we can track our growth for this. If you've never had a regular donation, well, it might be time to ask where you'd like your heart to go and put your treasure there. If you're new to Salt House and you're just getting to know us, you too can have an impact and make a difference by participating in the Leap of Heart campaign. So as we each consider this, you may make a one-time gift or increased monthly giving or both. One-time gifts are outstanding. Please give them. Yet ideally, the regular, dependable monthly giving, man, that's our bread and butter that you can later decide if you want to consider extending it after this year, right? But it really is what sustains us in our ministry together for the long term. And as you consider, remember, you can make a bold pledge now, and if your financial picture changes later in the year, you can always change that pledge, okay? Also remember, every little bit adds up. Every dollar matters. Now, get this. If possible, you'll want to make that pledge by June 15th, because already we have $37,000 additional dollars that are waiting to be matched. They're going to match your pledges for the next 30 days. That's right. We're aiming to raise $30K in 30 days by incentivizing the first $30,000 in pledges that we receive by June 15th with those matching donations. And by doing this work, then if by doing that in the next 30 days, then when we gather for our annual meeting on Sunday, June 27th, we will be voting on our leaders for our new church council, as well as approving our budget, which includes the vision we've just described. If we've received most of the pledges by then, we'll have a clearer picture of what we can say yes to together. So if you're visual, let me just show you how this all works out, how it all adds up, okay? So the $37,000 that we've secured is a mix of $10,000 grant from the ELCA, a $10,000 anonymous donation, And then $17,000 is what we've secured as rental income for use of our basement for this next year. Isn't that fabulous? Oh, huge thanks to our staffing task force. They've been meeting weekly and done the work to get these funds, and they're continuing to write grants, so we may even have more good news to share in the weeks to come. So then we'll see the remainder coming in as additional donations over the course of the year, as well as a very good likelihood of more grant money. But if we can match that $30K in 30 days, or even like the full $37K or more, man, then we are just on our way to leaping up to that leap of heart of $100,000, right? So my friends, get pledging so we can match those dollars. Now, you may remember that even this current fiscal year that we're in, we set our faith and growth goal to grow our giving over the course of fiscal year 2021, so where we are right now. We wanted to grow by $80,000. Well, we are currently just $13,000 behind expenses over income, with May and June still left to go. So we do still have some growth left in this year. So yes, you can still, please do still give to general giving this year as well. Yet let's celebrate how we have grown our giving so far this year by 36% year over year as of the end of April. 36% growth in giving this year during COVID. I mean, just thank you, God, and thank you all. That is incredible, right? So I love remembering and retelling our story together from these past 6 years, even just briefly as I did today, because I'm so glad and proud and joyfully overwhelmed when I stop to consider all that we have said yes to together. Our open hands, our heart leaping out in how we've given generously together. We're living a story of God's generosity. So why give? Because it's the best way to live. It's why we see so much generosity in the life of Jesus. It's why we try to live generously together here. I want to say thank you, Salt House, for how you have taught me this. You have shown me how this is true through your generosity in our life that we've shared together so far. God has done so much through us because of our open hands and our leaping hearts. I cannot wait to see what our giving will do together in the year and the years to come. Amen? Amen.